Bought one of these things and I actually quite like it. I'm going to be starting a series of advice videos because frankly, if I've made it this far, you probably can. School for me was like not enjoyable. This is going to be the first one. This is going to be secondary school advice. For some reason, when you're a hormonal mess as a teenager, you seem to think that everyone's looking at you and everyone's judging you. I mean, I still feel like that because I have anxiety issues up the wazoo, which you might not have guessed, but I do. In secondary school, it's like you feel like you're being watched the entire time, and to be honest, you probably are a little bit because teenagers tend to do that. This is the kind of advice that 14-year-old me would have loved because 14 was a horrible year for me, which is year 9 in England. Just to give a bit of context, when I was 11 years old, I was the same height I am now, which is about 5'9", so I basically stood out like a sore thumb because all of my friends, they were like the normal height for that age, whereas I was like towering over them, so I stood out a lot. And I still feel like that's affected me today with like how I perceive myself. Like I feel like I'm standing out a lot more than I am. Think of this like Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide with a diffuser. Okay, I have written a list of 10 things I wish I'd done in high school. By no means am I a saint, so if none of these work, I'm very sorry, but that is fate. I'm gonna hold my pen because it helps me concentrate. Number 1, do talk to teachers. You may be thinking your teacher is just there to teach you the curriculum. Some of them are, but most of them have lives. Basically, remember that they're people. I engaged with my teachers and talked to them a lot because I was a teacher's pet, but I loved that because it gave me a new perspective on interacting with adults. Also, of course, if you're being bullied or something like that, definitely talk to a teacher. If they don't know what to do, they will refer you to the part of the school that deals with bullying. You might get assigned a kind of therapist person or like a talk you through person. Number 2, do remove yourself from a toxic friendship group. I know everyone talks about having a toxic friend or a toxic friendship group in high school, but I definitely had a fair few. I suffered in silence way too long in those groups. I was worried about being cast out on my own and kind of doing lonely things at lunch times and break times and then being awkward in class, but honestly I would have preferred to have done that in some ways than been in this horrible group of people who clearly didn't give a shit about me. When I didn't have so much of an established friendship group, which for me was the first few weeks of year 7, I hung out on my own, but that does make you look a little vulnerable. I would go to the library, and then the library at the time was always ransacked by annoying kids and they were very loud. So definitely try and find, which is actually tip number 10, just a place where you can be in quiet solitude during break times and lunch times, because that would have been a saviour for me. They're very unpredictable times, and sometimes I'd have just liked to be on my own and known that I was on my own in a quiet place. See if you can arrange with a teacher to sit in their classroom during lunchtime, and usually if there's an adult in the room as well, it might make you feel more comfortable. So definitely, if you're a vulnerable little being like I was, then remember that that is an option. You don't have to be in the smelly corridors at lunchtime. Number 3, you should imagine a shell around you. And although people can obviously come in and out of the shell because you can't control like other people's actions, it gives you the feeling of safety, and it's like a bubble actually, not a shell, and you just kind of focus in your immediate vicinity. Another bit of advice, imagine everything else in black and white, because often, for me anyway, in school, you have all kinds of sensory issues. It's noisy, it's smelly. Put yourself in this bubble and everything else is in black and white. You can kind of dim down some of those sensory issues and make yourself feel a lot more comfortable. Number 4, do remember that every situation is temporary. When you're in high school, it seems like everything is so dramatic, and it's probably a combination of like hormones and just the environment in general. But you've got to remember that every situation is temporary. Another way of putting this is, will it matter in like a year? Okay, it might matter in a year. Will it matter in 5 years? You know, and usually it's no, like no one cares. And even if you are remembered by bullies and stuff, they'll probably have the guilt. Most people have a guilty conscience. I've seen a few videos on YouTube of people confronting their bullies, and the bullies are always super nice and like, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, that I hurt you. The person can't believe it. They thought they'd still have the vendetta against them because, you internalise insults, or I certainly do anyway, and you feel like their words are going to reflect you forever. Just not internalise them. I internalised every insult that I was given, and it took me many years before I realised, and I'm still realising now, that that's their personal opinion. And opinions are difficult for me because often I want to kind of make everyone happy. If other people have a bad opinion of me, I'm always like, why? Like, what do I do that's not worth worrying about? Because it's too much energy on your part. Tip number 5, not 10, is unwind when you get home. I often did this and I found it so helpful. If you have a game that you can easily get immersed in, like I love The Sims for instance, you will just forget the horrible day you've had. It doesn't have to just be a game, it can be music, it can be a book, anything. As long as you remember to detach yourself from school when you're at home, things are going to be great. Don't try and bring your school worries into your home life because that can be a difficult kettle of fish. Trust me on that one. Do number 6. Find alternative routes home if it's scary. For some unfathomable reason, the school I went to is literally the same campus as another high school. I'd have to walk home through another school ground. I was bullied by students from this other school just for being from the other school. This kind of made people like, oh, that's a vulnerable person over there, I'm gonna go pick on them. And that happened a lot on the way home. My advice to myself would have been, please find an alternative route home. If you can get a lift home from your parents or something, that's great, but obviously you don't want to burden them. I would recommend trying to find an alternative route, whether that's taking the bus, whether that's walking much longer, anything to stop yourself from feeling like scared on the way home, because that's the last thing you want to feel after the horrible day you probably had at high school. I often found walking home with a friend didn't help either, you just kind of were doubly distracted. Try and wear headphones if you can, so you can like block out anything. And remember that your journey home is temporary, and when you get home, remember to detach yourself from school. Tip number 7, remember what makes you unique and use it. I have a very weird sense of humour, as you guys can probably tell. I'm so funny on this channel. Not really. I knew that I was funny and I'd make people laugh on very odd occasions. I would say something in class and people would laugh, but I kind of forgot about that and I thought, you know what, that's just an off chance thing. Turns out I can often make people laugh, so I really wish I'd used that talent more in lessons. Not like making fun of anyone, not making fun of the teachers, being funny and witty, maybe joining in more in drama class and stuff like that, because that really made me feel like I was being myself. It gave me that sense of purpose and that sense of self that you didn't really get in high school because everyone was trying to blend in. Just remember what makes you you, and if you don't know what that is, that's fine, because it takes people years to find that out. But if you do know it, remember to use it in school because it will make you feel a lot better about yourself. Number 9. Bring something comforting to school. This includes like wipes for your hands because school is gross. Something that smells nice and reminds you of home maybe. Bring your favourite thing to eat for lunch. Like, just do anything you can to make yourself feel more at home in your body. For me personally, I always bring wipes and tissues around with me in my bag because there were so many times I'd end up at school and I'd have like a runny nose or I'd just feel gross. Oh, number 10 is arrange a quiet room, but I've already kind of mentioned that tip. Remember that you can find an environment that's non-threatening in school, and that might make you realise that the rest of school is not that threatening. Don't base your sense of self-worth on grades. I really didn't know how else to make myself feel complete unless I'd got the best possible grade. Although school is very important, having to test people's knowledge on certain things, for instance, although I'll go into this more in my university video, essays are terrible for me. I can't plan my thoughts, I can't do anything structured because of my ADHD, which I know is an excuse, I'm sorry, teachers, but I cannot write an essay, okay? It's just not my thing. I can write creative piece perfectly fine. Sometimes people, their brains and the way you're assessed in school, it just doesn't go together. They're trying to make you fit into a mould of how they think you should write, and that is not great. Having said that, please make an effort because you're gonna feel a bit shit if you don't. Don't worry about your friggin' yearbook or even prom. I've been to all of the proms that people arranged, and frankly they're underwhelming in my opinion. I didn't know what I was expecting in prom. I maybe thought I'd get swept off my feet by some random dark handsome stranger. That did not happen. Basically what happened in my prom was there was a DJ and people did dancing. I didn't do that because I can't dance for shizzle. There's also lots of tables and we all kind of sat at the tables, and then sometimes we'd eat like party food. There was no alcohol as far as I remember. It was alright, okay? Like, I don't recommend getting your hopes up about prom. Similarly, with the yearbook, the very usually quite expensive yearbooks that we do in the UK are usually a bit shit. Most of them are pointless, unless you're like a very highly prestige person in school and you have lots of awards and friends and whatever, like fine, good for you, but like this video is going to be for anxious peeps like myself. You're probably not even going to be in the yearbook and you never look at them again, like you just don't. They're just on your shelf and you're like, why did I buy that? Just don't bother. So those are all of my tips. If you want one of these things, I'll link them in the thingy-majig because I bet I'll get questions. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be doing videos for sixth form college, for university, for the other university, for careers as well, even though that's not education. And I'm also going to be doing study tips. Thank you for joining me in Chair Corner. That's a terrible name. That is my drink that I have not drunk yet, so my throat hurts like shit. Please like the video if you liked it, obviously. Please subscribe. I can't believe I've got 40 subscribers, man. Like, hello! Bye. You forget your worries for the rest of your days.